Good morning, Internet people. So, if you have been following the happenings in our country, you know that we are effectively living in a post-Roe or post-abortion United States of America at this point. And a lot of people are grappling with this issue. Most recent happening in regards to this was Judge Brett Kavanaugh was at a very, very expensive steakhouse, Morton's, and there were protesters there. Now, it's been published that he did not see the protesters. He was not aware of the protesters. Nobody in his dinner party was aware of the protesters. So obviously it wasn't an unruly protest. But nevertheless, the manager of the restaurant decided to escort Justice Kavanaugh out the back alley, which is so ironic. Karma there in a sense. You know, you're ran out of an establishment. Well, he wasn't humiliated because he wasn't really he didn't really witness what was happening. He was kind of like told and escorted for his convenience, contrary to what a lot of women are gonna go through in terms of seeking medical care. But anyhow, kind of like karma here in the justice. And Morton's shortly after published an op-ed asking people to please respect their establishment and the right to privacy and to congregate and have dinner. And I feel the reason Morton's is so brazen about this and thinks they are entitled to that is because of something that all of the United States is suffering. We have, for the last, I would say easy 10-15 years, we have fallen into bumper sticker politics and little hashtags and bites of sound and talking heads, and people don't really participate and don't really have enough knowledge of politics and policies and how things kind of like get shuffled around, and the fact that, you know, the president, contrary to what Trump used to think, has absolute power. Actually, they have very little power in all reality. This is why each new president has both the blessing and the curse that any policies that did not materialize during a former president's time, or even when they did, they can take credit for those even if they had nothing to do with them whatsoever. And they also have the curse that any repercussions from bad policies from former presidents that happen on their watch are immediately consumed and taken as this is your fault. So that's kind of like what has been degrading America overall. And everybody tries to keep blaming the justices, Trump, the GOP for all that is happening. And the reality is they are not the cancer. They are a symptom. The cancer is bigger and badder and resides within the Americans themselves. And one of the big things that is causing this issue is people's superficial and extremely limited knowledge of things like the Constitution, like the Bill of Rights and such. One of the things that help cases like Roe and such, and Casey and things like that to move forward was precisely the right to privacy, which now establishments like Morton's, which do not have that right because you are an establishment, and as long as the protest is happening in a public area and it's not destroying anything or whatever, then it is what it is. But that's what guaranteed a lot of the rights that we have gotten so accustomed to and that we take for granted. It wasn't only the access to terminating your pregnancy that was given due to your right to privacy, actually, not being prosecuted and being able to marry whoever you want was upheld because of that, due to the 14th Amendment and due process and the right to privacy and such. Interracial marriage was given because of that. So, having access to contraceptives and it was granted because of that. But a lot of people do not know these things. They are not knowledgeable about the Constitution and the things that are expressed in the Constitution and its amendments and how they apply to day-to-day lives and day-to-day America. And one of the things that a lot of the women that don't have access to abortion right now are not realizing, and I think it's going to come down the line. I think that this is not the end of it. I'm sure eventually we're going to have this case work its way up the courts again. But it depends on people actually knowing what the Constitution says, what the amendments say, what the Bill of Rights says. And one of the things that is actually expressed in the Constitution is obviously the liberty to worship whichever faith you so choose to follow. You're guaranteed that, but you're also guaranteed under the Constitution that you will not be bullied by any particular faith, which is exactly what's happening right now with this very radical evangelicals and Catholics that think that this nation is founded on their faith and their belief system. And one of the things that the Constitution, even if it was, which is not, the United States as a republic was not founded under any particular faith. Yes, they followed the tenets of the Ten Commandments and such, but think about who came over to the United States at that point in time, and they were not following the commandments. I mean, you can ask the Native Americans, they were not following Christian commandments, the immigrants that came and colonized this country, because no, they're not settlers, and they're not the whitewash history that we've been fed, that they came in the Mayflower and they were all so nice, and they broke bread with the natives. That's pretty sure people that still read and get educated and have access to books know that that's a fairy tale, that's mythology. But one of the things that the Constitution actually guarantees is that no faith, you won't be persecuted, you will not be bullied, you will not be forced by a church in your day-to-day lives. And that's exactly what is happening right now. This is exactly what the Supreme Court is doing, to the point that we recently found out that there was an evangelical pastor, probably a group of people with that pastor, praying with the justices the day they were gonna decide if Roe was gonna be overturned or not. And that's a huge thing. Like, women need to be aware of that. People need to be aware of that, because that's what's at play here. It's not only that Roe was overturned, it's that there is a lot more nefarious things happening that have nothing to do with being Republican and being conservative, and everything to do with the fear of others and white supremacy, and a particular group of people feeling under threat because they're no longer the majority. Because in this country, we keep weighing people's worth by the color of their skin and whether that color it's the biggest number, even though they're the new majority, minority, or whatever the hell people want to call it anymore. White people are very much in control and by far have a lot more power than the other groups, but they feel under threat, and they are trying to force their belief system and bully everybody else to fall into line, and that is, unconstitutional. The Constitution guarantees that that's not going to happen. Same as the right to privacy. And it is an oxymoron that something as intimate as bearing, being pregnant and eventually bearing and birthing a child is no longer protected by that. And the problem is not only the fact that we no longer have access to abortion, is that toxic masculinity has set things up even before Roe was overturned in order to control women. And a lot of you are going to be able to relate to what I'm going to say. Any woman that has tried, for example, to seek contraceptives that are a little bit more permanent, or that have sought to be sterilized before the age of 21 and before having children, will know that it is impossible. It is impossible. It is virtually impossible to get a doctor to agree to do that. So now that they no longer have access to making the decision if they want to terminate a pregnancy, that gets compounded with the fact that no OBG, for example, will give you a contraceptive that prevents you from getting pregnant for 3 or 5 years if you are childless and if you're in your early 20s, or if you're a woman that is certain today that you don't want children, you have no kids and you're in your early 20s, you will not find a physician that will agree to sterilize you because of this monumental fear around faith, because that's what it boils down to. Like each person's faith and belief, they're gonna say, it's like, oh well, you might regret it, and who the fuck cares? It's my decision. That's what it's all about. It's my body, my choice. If later on in life I regret it, guess what? That has nothing to do with you as a physician, because I decided it. So at that point, it'll be too bad, too sad. That's what you wanted, and you have to live with it. Same thing with an abortion. That is something private, intimate, and it should be decided by the woman and the physician, and she needs to deal with that with her own God if she believes in any. We cannot bully people because your faith believes that life starts at conception, or it starts after a certain amount of months or weeks, or when you can detect electrical activity in the heart. That is bullying. That violates not only the Constitution but the 14th Amendment. And I think that's why it's so important for people to actually dive in and know what the hell they're talking about. You know, because you hear people rattling stuff off, and when you really ask them about the Constitution, they can only tell you two things. Well, no, actually, it's usually three. Like, for the most part, people would tell you, they have freedom of expression, which is not as broad as people would like to think it is. It's actually not as all-encompassing as people think it is. The other one is obviously the right to bear arms, which people are freaking obsessed with. And the other one would be I plead the fifth, which people don't really understand what the hell it is half of the time. It just sounds cool, and people know about it because it's popular. So, but people don't really know in depth what the Constitution entails, what it guarantees, what it protects, and actually that is a very limited document. There is very little things that are in black and white, in ink, expressly protected by the Constitution. Most of the rights that we enjoy have actually came about through other means and other documents and soon they're not going to matter because we are a semi-democracy, a semi-effective democracy, because this country has continued due to the, I can't say sanctity, because that's not what it is, but we have been able to preserve trust in our institutions and the rule of law. And now we have not only senators and congressmen and governors and mayors that are completely oblivious to the rule of law, we have a Supreme Court that obviously has no regards for the rule of law and precedent. They are willing to change the dominoes whichever way they want. So learn your politics, learn who's actually making the decisions, learn what your rights and privileges are, so you can actually participate and pick people that are gonna actually listen to the majority and uphold the rule of law and protect the American way, or the lifestyle that we are all accustomed to. Anyway, that's my rant for today. Everybody take care, have a good day, stay healthy, and stay safe.